Yesterday we sold more of this than Coca-Cola. We've got 65% market share in New Zealand. We'll do 2 million cans in our first year.
2 million cans in New Zealand.
And the population is 5 million. I make decisions that on paper don't look like the most profitable thing to do, and yet we're extremely profitable. It is willing to treat the customer like your sister, which is above and beyond how most brands would think of doing it. You don't have to be completely different, you just have to be better. Focusing on the game that you are playing, winning at that game, and if you don't win, having the resilience to stand back up and fight again. I think it's incomparable to any other journey that you can walk in life.
So where does it all fall down?
I don't know what the solution is, but I've had enough reps of solving unsolvable problems that I just know I'll find a way. It doesn't get easier, it just gets different, and if anything, the problems get bigger. And sometimes you've just got to knock a little bit louder on the door for it to open. And I'm a big believer in that, is that persistence can really drive results. You just need that one yes.
There is a young gal listening today, but doesn't know where to start. What do you want to say to her? Welcome to Chew the Fat. My name is Frank Grief, and I started this podcast after I sold a business for $180 million with my two brothers. It's part of my mission to raise $1 million for Children's Cancer Institute by writing a cookbook called Eat With Purpose. In this series, I'm going to bring different types of founders on for you can share in their journeys and their lessons and insights. I'm also going to bring on guests who are in the middle of scaling their business. I want to make sure the challenges are relative to you and make sure you can take insights that you can use in each and every day in your business. I hope you enjoy. Kate Gatfield-Jeffries, welcome to Chew the Fat.
Thank you for having me.
My absolute pleasure. So, co-founder, and I'm going to say CEO of Moody. I want to start with what's the context in your early childhood that we need to know that made you the person you are today?
I feel like the theme of my childhood was hard work creates good luck. Because I don't think I was remarkable as a kid in any particular way. I wasn't that child who had the lemonade stand pulling in thousands of dollars every summer, and I wasn't, the best of my class at any particular thing. But my parents used to say to me all the time, hard work creates good luck. And I think I really learnt the power of that through my childhood. Having a lofty ambition or goal, applying yourself, working hard, and then getting some kind of extraordinary outcome. And I remember being sort of the last kid in the running race at school every year. The school cross country, I'd always dread it. I would truly be dead last. And one year I was I just don't want to come last anymore. So I trained the whole year. And then when it came around to run the race, I came third in the whole school. And that just taught me I'm not a natural runner, I'm not good at this, but you can kind of apply yourself. And if you put your mind to it, I think achieve pretty remarkable results. So that's sort of what I learned as a child, and I think that's flowed through into the context of my life today.
It's not a bad lesson to learn.
No.
It feels like a great lesson. I also resonate so much about this idea of dreading school running day. Let's not get into that. So for those that don't know, what is Moody?
Yeah, so Moody is a mental wellness supplement brand for women, and we make products that target things like gut health, stress, sleep, energy, focus, mood, and where we're really different to everyone else in the market is our products combine really great clinical efficacy. So clinically studied ingredients at clinically studied doses with sort of delicious, crave-worthy, enjoyable formats. And I know you're sipping on the soda and you had good things to say, but it's you wouldn't necessarily pick that has 1/4 of your daily intake of fiber, but tastes like a refreshing, delicious pink lemonade.
You're just a natural born salesperson, aren't you, Kate?
Well, the company's doing all right.
And so let's, I know we spoke offline. We don't share the kind of the revenue numbers and such, which is totally fine. But just for the audience, can you give us a sense of scale of where you are today?
Yeah. So in terms of our business, we sort of split it into direct to consumer online and then the retail component. So in terms of our online business, we are one of the largest direct to consumer women's wellness brands in Australasia. got 1 in 25 women in New Zealand taking our online products. It's pretty wild. Like I walk down the street and I see 25 women. I'm like, one of you is, drinking Moody. And then in terms of the retail side of the business, so we just launched into stores earlier this year with a canned pre and probiotic soda, and we're now the number 1 selling functional drink in our category. And we've got 65% market share in New Zealand. We'll do 2 million cans in our first year. It's pretty wild to think, and that's just in New Zealand.
2 million cans in New Zealand.
And the population is 5 million. Yeah.
That's amazing.
We're selling a lot of soda to the point where I went, like we do store visits and I go do sampling sometimes, and one of the store managers came up to me and he's like, yesterday we sold more of this than Coca-Cola.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fuck, that's cool.
Yeah.
And how long has the canned soda been out for?
Since February.
It's only July, Kate.
I know.
Okay, fucking oath, I'm pumped.
Yeah.
I love this. So like, here's one of my lessons of this podcast. People like a story, but once you've shared it a couple of times, they really want to get into those, like, what's in it for them, the business lessons. But I'm definitely keen to get a bit of a snapshot, like what is the journey? It's seeing you get to where you are today with Moody.
Well, it's funny because I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. Like ever since I was a teenager, when I was 17, I read a book called Think Bigger by Michael Hill. And after reading that, I was so inspired. I wrote down in a notebook that I was going to be the CEO of my own company by the time I turned 40. I'm only just turned 27, so a few years ahead of the curve. But I think it's the opportunity to do something extraordinary with your life and align your work with purpose. And for me, I went to university. I studied law and business for 5 years. I was going to go down a corporate route before becoming an entrepreneur and, earn some money, get some experience, get some credibility. And towards the end of my time at university, I just thought, life is short. I'd been able to lead some not-for-profit projects, and I just absolutely loved elevating women in their careers. And I thought, how can I just do this in the context of a business? And that's really how Moody was born. So I decided to turn down all my corporate job offers, and I went full-time on the business before the products had actually launched. And I was telling you earlier, the business had made $400, not $400,000 as Frank thought, but selling accessories, and the products hadn't even launched yet. But I think it's that conviction of sort of following your purpose and having that hunger and determination to back yourself that whatever you do, you're going to make it work. And if it doesn't work, you'll learn some extraordinary lessons. And I love that quote about being in the arena, and it's not the critic who counts. So that's very much what's led me to where I am today.
So here's the thing. We've been together for about 19 minutes. We've been on this podcast for about 3 minutes. Here's one of the things I'm noticing about you, and I hope this comes up in a really positive way. There's an intensity about you in terms of like in your eyes, and like I can see the determination and I can see this level of intensity. And so if I look at this like 3-year journey, I'm like, I can kind of get why you've gotten to where you are, because there's like that ferociousness to want to get to the goal. How does that show up in your day to day?
I think it's that conviction to just be willing to go above and beyond and do what others are not necessarily willing to do. And I'm very measured in terms of how I let that play out, because if you're a dog with a bone, it's like you want to be a bit selective about what bone you're going to pick. But I think for me, it's like being open to just seeing where things lead. And then when you find something that works, really doubling down on that, whether it's in a business context or, in the context of my life. I find something that I think I can be good at and I think I can have an unfair advantage at, and then I just make that the thing that I drive forward.
One of the things I love in business is this concept of, in the early days, you do unscalable shit, and the longer you're prepared to do things that are unreasonable and that others are not willing to do, the better the outcome. Can you bring me to you talked on there, this concept of doing what others aren't prepared. Like bring me some of those moments to like crystallize that.
Well, recently, so we've been in a massive hiring spree, and I'll find someone on LinkedIn who I think looks like a possibly good fit. I'll reach out to them and I'll say, I will fly to you for a coffee. And I did that, and we've just hired an incredible head of growth. Like I'm willing to, and I've got a lot on my plate. My calendar might be full that day. I'm like, Rach, clear my schedule. I'm flying to Sydney for a coffee.
Yes.
Recently I was meeting with the CEO of a large company in New Zealand, and he said, there's someone I want you to meet, but they're in New York. I said, if you intro me, I will get on a plane for that 1 hour meeting. So next week I'm flying to New York. Like I just end up sort of doing these things where maybe it doesn't make rational sense to other people, but I see an opportunity and I'm willing to chase it.
I have like this little analogy that I've thought about with this concept of like things that don't make sense, but later you'll be able to connect the dots and it'll make perfect sense. And I think about it as like you're pulling a thread. This little opportunity, this conversation comes along. You don't know necessarily where it's going to go, but you just pull on that one little thread, and then something else happens. You're like, I'll just pull on that, and then before you know it, you have this long string at the end, and that's where all the dots connect. I'm a big believer in that. Like the not saying yes to everything, but like you get that little feeling where you're like, I don't know what this is going to do, but I know it's going to do something. And so let me just like follow my curiosity.
Yeah. And I think that's honestly a lot of how we've run this business and made big decisions is, we're not necessarily following someone else's playbook. And I said to you earlier, I think if you follow everyone else's playbook, you get the same result as everyone else. So I'm willing to probably just rewrite something from scratch that to other people does not make sense. A lot of what I've done in the last 12 months, people look at and think I'm crazy. Like before we launched the can pre and probiotic sodas, I gave away 50,000 cans for free with online orders. People are like, you're absolutely crazy. And then I was like, I'm going to give away a $125,000 Range Rover to thank our customers for getting us into retail. Again, people are like, you're absolutely crazy. Our products sold so well in retail that they imposed a purchase limit of one flavour per person. And again, people thought I was crazy for letting the retailer do that, but I'm willing to just do it differently. And that requires a bit of conviction and an ability to be comfortable with risk. But there's also a lot of strategy behind that.
So let's talk about that. Like, let's talk about the strategy component, right? So let's take the car as a great example.
Yeah.
A soda beverage, only a few months old, getting a $100,000 to $20,000 car.
Yeah.
It doesn't get done. What was your thinking behind, and why did you decide to do it?
I'm so driven by our customers and serving them with what they want. I am intimately dialed into what they need from us and how we can be better as a business and serve them. So, for example, to give you the context of the car, I really have to pull it back to when we launched the soda into retail. And it came about because we launched our pre and probiotic powder. We sold millions of servings in a very short space of time. And all the customers are telling me they want something like even more kind of convenient and on the go. So I'm like, let's put this in a can. Let's get it into retail. And then the customers kind of helped us get it into stores. They were tagging, I think we got like thousands and thousands of tags, and we got it in record time, off cycle, full ranging across the whole country. In both retailers, it was incredible. It sold so well. Again, we had these purchase limits. So I wanted to thank the customers for doing that. And so I surveyed all the customers and I said, what is your dream car? And I love people emailing me like, oh, Moody's so cute. They're asking me what my dream car is. And it's like, yeah, I have an ulterior motive here. So it was, overwhelmingly a Range Rover. So I went and bought a Range Rover and I was like, here, I'm giving it away to you all. And we got 8 million entries in that sweepstakes giveaway. Yeah.
Obviously beyond just New Zealand?
Yes, Australia and New Zealand, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was their dream car and they really wanted it and someone was lucky enough to win it. So, it drove a lot of email signups and business growth and retail velocity, but it was also something that we could do for the community. And it was certainly a risk. Like there's, very few, if any, people in New Zealand giving away luxury vehicles.
Public service announcement. Chew the Fat is part of my mission to raise $1 million for Eat With Purpose cookbook. You can buy it at eatwithpurpose.net. Now, the other day I got a comment. The guy was like, too many ads. I just want to hear the podcast. Don't be like that. Come on, man. It's for the kids.
But I was willing to do that and just see if it would work, and it most certainly has. Yeah.
Let's talk about New Zealand for a little bit, right? So what's really interesting, obviously, with the founders table, I know a lot of Australian founders, right? And there's definitely some through lines that come in time and time again. And one of the things is the challenges with Australia is the concept of tall poppy syndrome and people are kind of back and forth between, is it a great place to start a business or is it not? What are the challenges you've encountered with starting a business in New Zealand?
Imagine everything in Australia and then 4x it because the population is way smaller. Look, it's hard, I think, to walk a different path that you're carving out for yourself and, everyone else is going in a different direction. And I do get a lot of criticism and people think I'm crazy. And, you know, people will say, we're faking our out of stocks. And I'm like, you have not seen our empty warehouse. Or, you know, giving away a car is financially reckless. And it's like, well, you don't know the marketing plan behind that. Or, you know, there's a lot of criticism. But like I said at the start, you know, it's not the critic who counts. I think for me to be able to live authentically and be in the arena and just know I'm giving it my best shot. And if I fail, then fail knowing I've learnt so much. And I also think that people, you know, that's a generalization. I think there are a lot of people who are super inspired by the journey, and I've been so open about sharing the highs and lows of the road that I'm walking. And one thing that I'm really passionate about is giving back sort of while I'm on the journey. And this year I launched a female founders grant and gave away $10,000 to 3 female founders, and I had thousands of women apply for that grant. I couldn't believe it. I just publicized it through LinkedIn only, and I was like, holy, I might need some support on these applications. But I think that just shows, you know, there really is a group of people out there who are willing to back you and believe in what you're doing, and you can't be what you can't see. So I'm passionate about, you know, being that person for others.
Why are you so passionate about that?
I think it's because I'm a really empathetic person. Like, I really genuinely care about others. I truly care so deeply about our customers. Like, I feel it on a visceral level. You know, when someone has a bad experience with the product, I'm like, that will ruin my day. But, you know, when someone has a great experience, like, I'm on cloud 9. And when people tell me like, oh, I know someone who's tried your product, like, literally hold my breath. I'm like, what did they think? So it's just, it comes from a genuine place of caring and wanting to do right by other people. So I think that's just driven me in everything that I've done. And it's funny because, you know, at the start of the business, maybe you're chasing some level of financial success or credibility or external validation. And I've had enough of that to know that it actually doesn't move the needle for me in terms of what's going to drive me to keep going from this point onwards. It's that genuine want and care to serve others.
Do you have brothers or sisters?
I've got 2 younger sisters. They call themselves the first Kate employees. Yeah.
That's so good. Yeah. How much younger?
2 years.
2 years.
Yeah, and they're twins.
Oh, that's cool. The reason I ask is as you shared that story about the highly empathetic, I resonated with that a lot. But I'm the youngest brother.
Yeah.
And so something, I don't know if I've ever shared this on the podcast, so fuck it. And who cares? I'm chatting to you now. One of the things that when I've reflected, like, why am I there, that like driven, like where like I always think about from someone else's shoes, and like even to the words, like when I say these words, how are they going to be thinking? And I think back to when I was really young, like I remember I was maybe like, I don't know, maybe 6. And my middle brother has just become a teenager. And, you know, he's got into a usual teenager fight and he says to mum and dad, I hate you, and then runs away. And then I come up crying to my parents and I'm like, he doesn't hate you. Like, he's just a bit emotional.
Yeah.
You know? Like, I think being in that little family environment, I think drives a lot of, drives a lot of empathy.
Totally. And like even through university, I remember getting into law school and I was like, wow, I'm so privileged. And both of my parents studied law. Like I definitely had, you know, a level of support that I'm very aware that others did not. And I thought, this is just so unfair. Like we're running a race and I've got a head start here. So how can I make it, you know, fairer for all the other people I'm seeing around me? And, you know, especially in law as a profession and other aspects of business, it's like at the highest levels, you know, a lot of it's male dominated and you need to get more women up through the ranks. So starting early is really important. And it was something like 70% of the 70% of the students in law school are women, but only like 10% of law firm partners are women.
Interesting.
So I was like, we need to increase the diversity of the women getting through. So I started these mentoring programs and I was pairing these women trying to get into law school with students who were already in to help them get through the first year, which is very grueling and requires a certain GPA cutoff and, you know, it's a bit savage. And honestly, the stories from these mentees was just so moving. Like there was this one woman and she said to me, she's like, I'm legally blind. I have like 12 surgeries every year. And having this program has meant that I've now got friends in the class who can like, you know, send me a note after the lecture because I'm in hospital. This other woman who is LGBTQ and she got kicked out of home because her parents didn't align with, you know, who she was as a person. and she was working like night shifts at a supermarket,
Wow.
trying to, do that while getting into law school. So having just the support of someone to say like, I believe in you and support you as a person just was the difference. And that first year I had 100 women in the program and 90 of them got into law school.
Wow.
And I think the average acceptance rate is like 50% or something.
Oh, wow,
so,
that's cool.
Yeah, and I then replicated that in subsequent years and I then did it at the business school and I scaled it to thousands of people and it still runs to this day, which is amazing to think. You can just, use business or problem solving or leveraging teams of people to really create something bigger than you would ever be able to alone.
I think that's one of the most important realizations about business. With the right intentions, with the right person, it can be a vehicle for so many things. I often get, usually from just some random spicy Instagram hater, like you sold your business for this, like why aren't you retiring? And I think like so many people miss the point is like the number of, in the commercial aspect is definitely one part of it. I'm not going to pretend that I don't care about commercials, but all of the other things that the business is a vehicle for. So like the ability to have purpose and change, the ability to grow as an individual, the ability to like grow other individuals. Like there's so much more to it that then makes it like really intoxicating. And
it's funny because on the surface, a lot of that stuff doesn't make commercial sense.
Yeah.
And I'm like you, the numbers totally excite me. Like I rattled off some at the start, and it's like pretty exhilarating to know you can achieve so much in such a short space of time. But like, we do other things. I've done 9 paid internship placements within the business for women interested in startups. We do a free naturopath for any of our customers, or they don't even have to be a customer. This person has no sales target. I'm like, if the product's not going to work for this person, please don't sell it to them. I'm like, maybe don't name the competitor, but I'm like, and I truly believe that if you sort of put that goodness out into the world, like you will have commercial success. Obviously there's a lot of other things to the equation that you have to get right, but I make decisions that on paper don't look like the most profitable thing to do, and yet we're extremely profitable. Yeah.
Clip that up. Get the clip farmers on that one. So let's go into some of the kind of the lessons for the audience. So one of the things I'm curious about, the journey's been 3 years young. You've still got a long way in front of you. But what was your assumption going into building a business, and what's the kind of the truth and the reality that you've learned about it?
I mean, it's the hardest thing I've ever done, but it's more exhilarating, exciting, and fulfilling than I probably could have ever imagined. I think I had preconceived ideas that have really shifted around who our customer is. And I think it's important to have an open mind and be very data-driven. So when I started Moody, I thought our customer will be, a young woman like me, maybe on a corporate pathway who's super burnt out. Turns out it's, 1 in 25 women, and that's a very broad psychographic of people. So I think it's being willing to shift your preconceived ideas based on what you're seeing and having that openness. But I also think you need to have some conviction around, what is your values, what is your unique proposition, and don't deviate from that, no matter how many shiny objects you see or what looks like it's popping off in the market. I think it's that willingness to really drive forward with what your original plan is, but tailor it along the way based on what you're seeing is working or not working.
One of the things I've been getting recently is this question is like, more and more people are entering more and more markets, and so much is becoming crowded, right? And I think that a lot is to do with just, it is becoming simpler. Right now, 2025, it's the best and easiest time it's ever been to start a business. And so the question has been, Frank, how do I enter a market that is crowded, and how do I stand in front of the rest? How did you go about this?
So, I mean, wellness or supplements, especially for women, is super crowded, like many other markets that you speak of. And what I always think about is you don't have to be completely different. You just have to be better. And that can be on many dimensions. For us, it's a more efficacious product with better scientific backing. It's an even more delicious product that's more crave-worthy and enjoyable. And it's even more engaging marketing that stops the scroll and really gets people's attention. And then it's even more customer obsession that's better and that really serves people with what they want. So it's across all of those dimensions. But in the beginning, we didn't have all of that super dialed in. We just had the product, and so much has changed, but the one thing that's remained the same is the active ingredient that we used and the dose, because ultimately that's what was driving results for people and what would bring people back. So I think starting with a unique proposition that you can do better than anyone else, and then as time goes on, dialing in all the other components.
And did you like look at the what was in the space? Let's say from like a brand perspective, from like a look and feel. Did you look at what was in the space and go like, okay, where's my spot? Or like, what was your process?
Honestly, to some extent we did, but I also feel like there was just this innate sense of I have an idea and I'm going to bring it to life. It's like you can look at what everyone else is doing, but like I say, then you just maybe get tainted by what everyone else is doing. So sometimes I quite like to just do something completely different and just see if it works. There is a lot of intentionality now, especially around building out product ranges and SKUs, and the architecture of that is intentional and it's very aligned with what the business is and it all looks cohesive, etc. But at the start, I don't necessarily think you know exactly what will work on those dimensions. So you have to have a little bit of flexibility there.
It's such a good point. And I think two things that come to me when you say that. Number one is this concept, like if you do start and you place them all in front of you, you might find a unique spot, but your unique spot is kind of like an amalgamation or a slight variation of all of those things.
That's right.
And it's like not as unique as it could have been,
That's
because
right.
you're looking too much for things that shouldn't be inspiring. Instead, like I think some of the interesting ways to look for inspiration is like completely out of your market. Like, like what's the inspiration from a fashion magazine or from a, completely third party place that then you can bring into the game. But the second thing I think is really interesting is just the truth of the matter, which is like, I didn't like fuck around too much. I just kind of went for it and figure it out. I think a lot of early stage founders, like one of the challenges is they have a perceived view of perfection and they put all this attention and energy on said perfection, but none of that is grounded in the market's reality. And only through putting something out, getting the feedback from the customers, seeing the data, do you actually know and can start driving towards this perfection.
That's right.
The rest is just like in your brain, you're just making it up.
Exactly. You're never going to have perfect timing or full information. Like at some point you just have to throw shit at a wall and see what sticks. And for us, that was launching with a functional protein powder. And everyone was loving it and they were using it for sleep benefits all of a sudden. And they're making like a full protein shake before they go to bed just because they love the active ingredient for sleep. And they all find it annoying that they only can really have it as a smoothie. So I'm like, let's bring out a specific PM range for sleep. You can have it with milk, like a hot chocolate. We can do other flavors of it. And then everyone's loving that, but they're like, it's kind of annoying having to add milk. And I'm actually really struggling with my gut health. And we're seeing the gut-brain connection. It's like really centered on mental wellness, but also gut microbiome. So then we launched something that you just add to water. And that's a pre and probiotic. And then everyone's loving that, but they're like, I want it even more convenient and accessible and on the go. So then we put it in a can. And now the product ranges we're developing are like the next evolution of that. So it's starting with something that you can then iterate and evolve based on what your customers are telling you.
Love it. Let's talk about marketing. You used the word before, stop the scroll. And I immediately caught my attention because I was like, Kate, I need to do that too.
Yeah.
Help me. What are you thinking about in marketing this year? Like, what are you seeing that's working? What's working? What's different? Like, how do you think about it?
I'm thinking about marketing from the perspective of building a brand. Everything is a touch point that equates to brand. And I'm not willing to compromise brand equity or long-term value for just a quick click. And especially in our industry, there's a lot of predatory marketing that it probably sells, melt off 5 kilos in 1 week type thing. And I really lean away from that. And I lean into trust and credibility and sort of really meeting the customers where they are and being empathetic to what they're experiencing on their wellness journey. And so that is sometimes a short-term trade-off in terms of a low-hanging acquisition. But I think what it really drives is like long-term retention and brand loyalty from our customer base because they have so much trust in us as a brand.
And so how does that materialize? So let's say, okay, cool. Those are all the things we want to achieve.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
So I script pretty much every ad that we run. So I'm doing thousands of ads a year. And one thing that I lean into...
Mostly video content?
Mostly video.
Yep.
We also do static. We're like top 1% meta ad spend in the world, multi-million-dollar ad spend across both countries and different channels. And I really lean into using customers. So we'll be on Instagram, TikTok every day, finding people organically tagging Moody. And we're like, hey, so happy you love the product. Do you want to, elaborate on that a bit more? And I'll give people sort of high level points to touch on, but I'm never making it super prescriptive so it doesn't seem authentic. And what I found is that when it's a real woman sharing her story, there's someone else out there who can so deeply relate to her that they then buy into that as part of her community. And I think that's where diversity is really important. So I'll use lots of different women from different walks of life, different cultures, different age groups, different everything. And I always find that then within that, there's a community of people who fully resonate with her. So I think it's the authenticity piece that's really important. And we talk about stopping the scroll. So much of content is just all the same. How do you be completely different? I do think building a founder-led brand is super important and can cut through that, but I don't want Moody to be reliant on me to drive that growth.
So with this, sorry, I need to stay here for a moment. Maybe the audience doesn't care, but all I know is I care.
Yeah.
And so I'm very excited by it. Yeah. You mentioned there this almost like UGC, like user generated content. Are you taking their piece of content and then just using that, or you're now reaching out to them and then you're creating a fresh piece of content with them talking about it? What are you doing there?
Yeah. So it's almost like a customer content creation program.
Yes.
So we'll find people organically using the product and enjoying it. It could even come through a testimonial, an email, or it could be an Instagram story. Reach out to them. We may use that piece of content and get usage rights, and sometimes we do that, but mostly we will also be briefing them on creating another piece of content. And then we have people we work with long term, and it's we know they love pre and probiotics. They've been organically using it. They can authentically say, I bought this. I saw an ad and I bought it.
Yes.
And this is my genuine, legitimate, honest opinion about this product. And then we launch a new flavor and we're like, hey, we'd love for you to try this and use it and, create another piece of content around, what your experience has been. And I think people can see that it's so real.
What are the kind of numbers? How many of these are we doing in a year? How many of these stories?
About 70 a month.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Write this down, team.
Yeah. So
this is good.
I'm part-time video editor, ad tech scripter, and then part-time founder.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's good.
We do it a few weeks ago, we booked a podcast studio and I posted on the Instagram story, who wants to come and be interviewed about their Moody journey. And I had hundreds of women reply within 20 minutes. So I just picked a few of them. And the producer's do you want to just call them first and check that they can kind of speak to the camera? I was nah, it'll be all good. And it's just amazing. I had one woman drive 3 hours to be there and another one organise childcare so she could come and share the journey. And people really buy into it and they want to be a part of that community.
That was the exact word that came to my mind there, right? Yeah. Is the only way that customers were willing to do that is they feel part of a community.
Yeah.
What have you done to drive the sense of community?
Yeah. And it's fascinating because I never set out at the start of the business to be I'm building a brand community. And I don't want to just say it happened because I do think there was an intentionality of nurturing it over time. But it certainly wasn't this grand strategy to have, hundreds of thousands of women love Moody and want to be in the community. What I've learned about community for us as a brand is it's not necessarily the customers talking to each other. I think that's where a lot of brands go wrong. And for some people it works. But for us, it's actually the dialogue that we have with the customer. And it's willing to go above and beyond and sort of surprise and delight and be super personable and do the sort of unscalable. Right now we're in the throes of doing new product development research and I am personally emailing with 650 customers. That's how many emails are in my inbox that I will get to in the next 3 days. And they're all getting an email from Kate because they've shared a personal story about this new category that we're wanting to enter. And I'm trying to understand how can we meet their needs, what kind of marketing is going to resonate. And I'm having a dialogue with each of these 650 women about what they want. It's doing that kind of thing. Or, someone will email in and they've had a hard time and maybe, I remember this one story and she's oh, my daughter just loved this particular product that's limited edition now doesn't exist. And I'm I am determined to hunt down one unit of this thing and send it to this person's daughter. And we will do that for people. Someone will be having a hard time as a customer and we'll just send them a bouquet of flowers. It is willing to treat the customer like your sister, which is above and beyond how most brands would think of doing it.
All right. So if nothing else, Kate, today, I've gotten that from you and that has been so incredibly valuable. And like, if the audience hasn't like fallen off their chair, that's okay, because I have, and that's very, very good. I've gotten a lot of inspiration. We're like right now in the throes of the go-to-market strategy, and like what you just touched on there is I'm like, oh, fuck, that's very, very good. So thank you. Let's talk about where it all starts to crumble a little bit, right? So I think as we look back and we talk about this, I'm getting the sense of like, it's just one hit after the next, it's all going great, but I just know the realities of business. So where does it all fall down?
I think it's in the micro moments for us. We haven't really had any macro momentous fuck up, touch wood. We will, I'm sure, but so many small fires or big fires, you know, going wrong. I remember in the early days, I didn't understand digital marketing, and I thought the best solution is hire an agency. This is like month 2 and I'm bootstrapping like no money. And it was $10,000 minimum retainer for 3 months, not including the ad spend. It's like, you know what? It's going to be the best way for me to learn this. It was a disaster. We went from selling like, 8 units a day to like 4. It was horrific. And honestly, my back was up against the wall because we pretty much ran out of money. And it's like, I had to teach myself digital marketing overnight. I think that's where I've learned the value of just knowing your business inside out and being able to learn everything from the ground up, especially if you're bootstrapping and you don't have the luxury of, hiring experts in the early days. Like I had to become the top 1% at all of the things in the business that really counted. And one of those things was like performance marketing. So you just have to back yourself and work really hard to put in the time to become good at something and get those reps on the board. And like I say, now that's actually a competitive advantage for us. I make thousands of ads and I'm pretty good at digital marketing now. But, there was a time where my skill level was nothing. And I've learned that no one else probably cares about the business, or not doesn't probably. No one else cares about the business as much as you do. So being willing to get your hands dirty where it matters and drive results that are important. So that's just one example with digital marketing. I mean, we have manufacturing problems all the time. Things will go wrong. The most recent one was like 16,000 cans were botched. We've got retailers waiting, etc. And you have to get creative. And in the early days, something like that would happen, like a manufacturing fuck up. And I'd think, how on earth am I going to solve this problem? Like, I actually think this might be the end. And now I get those same problems and I'm like, I don't know what the solution is, but I've had enough reps of solving unsolvable problems that I just know I'll find a way. And we've done that so many times. I remember one year before our Black Friday launch, the manufacturer accidentally cross-contaminated an AM blend with a PM blend. So it's now like it's making you energized and it's putting you to sleep and the ingredients are not what is on the label. And we were like, what the hell do we do? We've got 2 weeks until our biggest launch of the year. This is going to cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars. And we managed to get in enough ingredients of each of the thing to remake it. And then we like relabeled that as an all-day blend, re-ingredient labeled it, etc., and gave it away for free. If you see a limited edition all-day blend, you know what that was now. But it's just making lemonade when you get dealt a bad card.
One of the things, right, like as we're talking, this concept, the person you need to be to get from 0 to 1 is different from 2 to 5 and from 5 to 10. I'm not talking about revenue, but just like, I guess in like the game of business.
Totally.
And I see you're at that like next stage of the evolution now. And a lot of these lessons, which is like, roll up my sleeves, get my hands dirty, doing the video editings, can then sometimes become hindrances on the next. How do you wrestle with this concept of like control to being able to continue the growth?
Yeah. And it's such an evolution, right? You start as a player and then you're sort of a player coach and then you're coach and then you're maybe like manager of the club and then you're like director of the club and then you're on the board of the club. So that's very much the evolution that I'm on now. And I think for me, there is nothing more enjoyable than being able to hire people that are better than you at that thing and empowering them to do that. But I also have enough understanding to know what good looks like. So I can guide these people in the right direction and sort of give them the North Star metrics or KPIs, OKRs that we're going to chase and be there as a sounding board, but not get, completely in the way. And that's hard, to your point, that aspect of control when you were executing fully across all functions of the business end to end for the first 2 years, and now all of a sudden there's someone else there. And I think that that's more of a mental game than anything else. And my threshold now for whether I'll interfere with something is, does it affect revenue? Like, is this going to matter in months, years from now? And it may not be perfect. It may not be the way that I would have done it, but that's subjective, Good looks like different things. So that's sort of the framework that I apply. And then for me to be able to go on that transition effectively, like Moody is my first job, my first full-time job. I was never managed. Like, I'm doing performance reviews with the team. I'm like Googling like how to performance review. Like, I've never been performance reviewed. And so I've had to really invest heavily in upskilling, and that's a time commitment. That's a financial commitment when you're so busy, in the weeds executing to an extent to also be able to become this coach. I read a lot of books. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I have incredible advisors around me. I mean, we don't have investors. We don't have a board. I'm not really accountable to anyone else. So I seek kind of external input that's, somewhat objective, and someone will tell me like, Kate, stop doing that. Or, you need to be better at this thing. And I'm willing to have no ego because I think when you can acknowledge like, I don't know that, I'll go work that out, or I'll go get better at that thing. I think people really relate to that. I'm not afraid to, admit that I'm not the expert at everything. So it's a constant journey, and the business can only grow as fast as you grow.
100%. What are your aspirations? Like, it's 5-10 years from today. Like, where do you want to be? Where do you want Moody to be?
I mean, it comes back down to the impact that I want to have. And for me, it's like with this business, I think we can elevate 1 million women to feel their best. And that's so exciting to me because it's not just that they had a better sleep or that their gut health is more functioning. It's like, what does that then enable? Like, if I have a terrible sleep, I can't do anything the next day. Like, I'm dysfunctional. And it's like, people have families, people have work commitments, people are wanting to give back in their community. So unlocking health and wellness for people, I think unlocks so much potential for them and then the people around them. So I want to positively impact 1 million women. And then in terms of me personally, I think what I've really learned on this journey is it's the continuous opportunities to develop and upskill and learn. Like, I'm such a curious person. And I really distilled it down. In the early days, I was like, I love this, but I don't really know what I love about it. Now it's like, I just love learning. I love having to learn the next stage of the business. Every month, I'm so freaking uncomfortable. I'm like nailing it. And then the next thing comes, I'm like, oh shit, like I know nothing about that. Everything I've done and I'm doing now, I once knew nothing about. So that's really exciting to me. And that gets me out of bed in the morning, is combining those two things and getting so much enjoyment out of being on the journey. And I've realized that, we all have this fallacy in our head of when I get to X, it'll be easier or it'll be different then. And I've had enough like A, B, C, D, E, and now I'm at Z. I'm like, it's still so hard. And I listen to you and you're like, the second time round, it's still so hard. And it doesn't get easier. It just gets different. And if anything, the problems get bigger and
100%
more complex. So it's that internal resilience. It's like an emotional, mental journey to go on, as well as like an intellectual one.
And what are you most curious and learning about right now? Like, what's the thing that's going to, the next 3 months, the next year? Like, what's your biggest focus?
I think it's leadership. So you can't behave the same way that you've behaved in a business by executing on everything when you've got a team. So it's how do you empower those people and unlock that potential within them to really drive results, but without, being on the tools yourself the whole time. And that's hard. And I think I've been on a journey and gotten a lot better at it, but I think there's still so much more to go. Like, we've just hired 2 head of roles, and that's going to be a completely step up from even having like management or individual contributors. So, how am I going to empower those senior leaders within the organization to do a good job? So I think that's really my next area of focus.
Love that. Well, I've many times have recommended a book to people and they read it and they say that was the worst book I've ever read. It was so boring, but I'm going to recommend it to you anyway. There was a book that changed everything for me. It was called Coaching for Performance. And it was a book about a sports coach and like how they train athletes and this understanding of like, you know, a sports coach, let's say someone who's the coach to Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant, but he doesn't know how to play basketball. And so like, how can someone training the best and coaching the best athletes in the world not even know how to do it and like the nuances. And I found that like really interesting for business, and then how you apply that to teams. And that was like a fundamental shift for me. So you can keep that in the back of your pocket and then let me know.
Add it to the list.
Yeah, let me know when you're like, that was that was boring and dry, Frank. It was like 17 hours of book.
I'll push through. Yeah.
There is a young gal listening today. Maybe she's got her AirPods in, you know.
On a hot girl walk.
Oh, no. Yes. She's on a hot girl walk right now.
Yeah.
And she's inspired, but doesn't know where to start. Like, what do you want to say to her?
So many people told me I couldn't do this. And it's funny because if I'd listened, obviously I wouldn't be where I am today. But it's like, how do you convince someone that their idea is a good idea and that they should unapologetically pursue their ambition? And I think that's hard because when you're surrounded by external circumstances that would suggest otherwise, where do you find that internal conviction and belief to just go and do it? And I would say exactly that. Put one foot in front of the other and start walking towards this dream. And while you're at it, like, dream big, you know, shoot for the moon, like go hard. And don't listen to the people around you telling you that you can't do it. Like, you can, even if they're experts or they've got experience or whatever. Just fully disregard that and get in the arena, and no matter what, you will have the time of your life.
So let's just talk about that concept of being in the arena. Like, what do you get from that quote, and like, what has it meant to you?
There's just so much noise and criticism. Like, all the people who are spectators of your life, they're not living it, but they've got an opinion. And I think especially being a young woman, I always joke, like, do I have mansplain at me like tattooed on my forehead? Because it's so often just unsolicited crap, to be honest. And I think it's like zoning all of that out and just focusing on the game that you are playing and, you know, winning at that game. And if you don't win, it's having the resilience to like stand back up and fight again, because it's inevitable in business that you'll get knocked back down. But it's the journey of having been in the arena and living that, you know, I think it's incomparable to any other journey that you can walk in life. And business is the ultimate experience of being in the arena. Yeah.
100%. We're getting close to the end here. I would love to know, like, what haven't we spoken about? What's on the top of your mind at the moment that you think would be important for the audience to hear?
At the moment, one theme that is really coming through for me in the business is like hearing no and making it a yes. Like, I've read this quote where sometimes you've just got to knock a little bit louder on the door for it to open. And I'm a big believer in that, is that persistence can really drive results. And yes, you have to be aiming in the right direction. And, you know, sometimes a no is respectfully a no and you leave it at that. But, you know, in the context of retail or other things, it's like people are notoriously getting so many no's, and it's like raising capital. You just need that one yes. So it's how can you be creative and a little hungrier than everyone else to just get that yes. And for me, it's like I am willing to go to that extra level and think outside the box and maybe reverse a no.
Love that. There was actually nothing more satisfying.
Yeah, totally.
Getting a no, it's framed, it's in your memory, and then you turn that person into a raving fan or a raving customer.
It's the ultimate fuel.
Oh,
like
so
the
good.
no's and the naysayers and the critics, that just drives me further. Yeah.
It's disgusting. I could love it.
Yeah.
As you reflect on the 3 years and the journey so far, what are you most proud of?
I think it's my growth as a person. When you're a founder, there's nowhere to hide. Like, it's so confronting. Every chapter of the journey that you go through, you're having to confront the newest challenge or emotional hurdle or limiting belief or imposter syndrome or whatever it may be. And it's like you're constantly looking in the mirror and reflecting that back to yourself and thinking, how can I be better? And if I look at where I was 3 years ago, you know, I was that person on a hot girl walk with my AirPods in, wondering if I had what it took. And now I'm the co-founder of one of the fastest growing, largest women's wellness brands in Australasia, on a pathway to incredible impact that it is beyond what I could have ever dreamt. But what I've, hopefully shared a bit more on today, and what I want people to understand is there is so much work that goes from getting from there to here to where I am today. And if you stick at it, you can just achieve more than you ever imagine is possible.
Kate, if I say to you it's been an absolute pleasure, it's an understatement. I'll be really honest with you.
Because you're drinking my soda, Frank.
Yeah, that's right. I'll be really honest with you. So I was really looking forward to today. I've been seeing your LinkedIn posts when you mentioned the vision board being on Chew the Fat.
Yeah.
It warmed my heart up. It's lived up and beyond my expectations. I know there's going to be so many people, but very specifically also so many gals that are so inspired by today's conversation. And thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.